It's in this car, my wife's car. All right. Good evening, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. Today we're going to be talking about the truth being hidden in plain sight. But before we get started, a little bit of a story time. Get the dice for you because I know how much you guys just love these dice. So the other day I'm at work and somebody comes in who I just absolutely love. Was my old acting coach teacher. I took one class. And the lady who taught the class, she says, I would love for you to audition for a play. I go and I audition for a play, and the play gets shut down because of COVID. We do one show, right? And the play gets shut down. And that was like, whatever, 4 years ago now, right? She comes in the other day. It's like, oh, hey, it's great seeing you. That was so much fun. And she says to me, I asked her, I said, are you doing any plays? She says, yeah. In fact, we have auditions coming up. Why don't you come on down and audition? Now, I don't know anything about being in theater or being on stage, or I kind of know a little bit about being on stage from the conventions, but I don't know about theater that much, right? So I go down to do this audition and I have no idea what to expect, right? And I feel like I'm down there with all these seasoned actors who really kind of understand what's going on. And so it's like we get up and start doing these rehearsals and these readings and stuff, and they're like acting, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys are so good. Right? Like I'm up there and I can barely even read because you know me. I stutter through everything, and I didn't really read the play that much before I went up there because I didn't know what to expect from the auditions or what I was even supposed to do when I got there. And so I was just kind of winging it as I was there. And she says, hey, why don't you come back? I would like for you to do another reading of the play, and that way I can make my decisions. When I show up, there was other people who had done the same thing. They had just kind of came through and left, and I was the very last one to come in. And I do the reading. I'm up there for about 10 minutes. She asked me to do it a couple of different ways to put some different emphasis in different directions on this particular monologue that we were reading within the play. So I go and do it, just the way she said. And she comes down, she says, congratulations, you got the part. So I'm going to be in a play. I cannot wait. This is so much fun. I am looking forward to this. The last one I had done, I had played this part of a bartender, and it was just so fitting. I just felt like the bartender, and it was just an incredible experience to do all the rehearsals, do the show. It was so much fun. In this particular play, it's called Out at Sea, and it's about three guys stranded on a life raft, and it's a comedy, and they are debating on who it is that they are going to kill and eat. And I am looking forward to this play. All right. So, hiding the truth in plain sight. That's really what we're going to be talking about today. And a lot of people will a lot of times kind of go towards the conspiracy theory sort of things, and I have a tendency to want to use their own words against them. And so when I think about being hidden in plain sight, I think about all the things that I have read coming from the Federal Reserve itself that they simply just don't talk about inside of the mainstream media or any kind of presentation out there that you would hear from an economist. Almost everybody that I hear has the intentions coming from the Federal Reserve completely inaccurate. And for the reasons that they have this belief in this inaccuracy of this belief is because they don't truly understand what the Federal Reserve strategy and their problems were when it came to their monetary policy and what they refer to as the effective lower bound. Now, this stuff gets incredibly complicated. Like the average person to try and wrap their head around this would literally take years just to try and understand some of the information that I'm about to try and just explain to you in the simplest that I can, because it is complicated. It's not something that you're going to be able to just knock out in 10-minute video. There's no 10-minute video that can possibly explain it. right? So when we go through it, you have to think, I don't even have notes in front of me today. What I did is I just left a bunch of links down in the description. I just went through and I just thought about a bunch of different things that I think it would be very important to understand. If you go through all the links that are in this video and you read every single one of the documents and you understand them for what they are saying, like understand them all the way through, especially John Williams' monetary policy strategies for a low neutral interest rate world. I cannot promote that speech enough. In fact, I want to make John Williams wish he had never written it. That's how much I want to bring it up and talk about it, because he talked about all the things that were needed in order to solve the problems of their monetary policy. And here it is after COVID, and it's exactly in line with the problems that they needed to solve. So when you read that speech, think about that. Think about that one line that's in there. The problem we need to solve these days is the risk of inflation that is persistently too low rather than too high. Now think about that. The problem we need to solve today is the risk of inflation that is persistently too low rather than too high. And I see this article coming out saying, oh man, we got persistently high inflation. And I'm like, that's was the problem that the Fed wanted, right? It's not a problem that they don't want, it's a problem they do want. The problem they don't want is an inflation that was persistently too low. So now that they have an inflation that is persistently high, it is right in line with their monetary policy and what it is that they need to use in order to conduct themselves. And this is where it gets incredibly complicated. If it's already not complicated enough, right? To think that they wanted a monetary policy that had an inflation expectation that was high, to understand why it is that they needed it is because the effective lower bound, which is essentially where they can no longer use the interest rates for an adjustment because it hits zero, right? They call that the effective lower bound, because it's no longer an effective tool for stimulating the economy. They can't drop it any further than that without going into negative territory. So understanding that this is like no longer an effective tool, they knew that they had to come up with something that would still be able to use within the economy. And it turned out that they have some stimulating ability through quantitative easing, where they can force, not force, but allow the government to go deeply into debt and continue to shove that money out there into the system. Or they can start to use the idea of a credible threat, which is also in line with the quantitative easing that they use. They use both of them at the same time. But as of today, what they have is an inflation expectation that is elevated. This gives them the ability to be able to use the credible threat, to be able to use the persistent idea of using a interest rate adjustment to then guide the people into a belief of what it is that is going to be coming into the future. And if the Fed signals the rate cut, then you know that's going to be a cut coming into the future. You are going to act and behave as if that rate cut has already happened. When the rate cut takes place, literally nothing changes about the market because the Fed has already had the work done. Now, this is very important to understand because it's always open-ended after that. Even think about it right now. Oh, we don't know how many rate cuts are coming in 2025. They may even have to raise rates if you listen to Daily, right? Another Fed official out there. And so when we think about what it is that the Federal Reserve is truly using for their monetary policy, which is their words, and the belief of what it is that's coming into the future, they will signal what it is that they want the market to do, like they did this coming rate cut, and then they will, sorry guys, sitting in the car doing my low tech videos here, and then they will leave the open-endedness of the future cutting of rates so that they can manipulate the market's perception. If the market gets too hot, they could be like, oh well, man, I don't know, we may not have to cut, we may not cut rates, we may have to skip a rate, skip a cutting just to see how the market is doing. And that would put the perception within to the economy that there's things that are getting too hot for the Fed to handle, and then they would be acting accordingly. The Federal Reserve really doesn't have to do anything with their interest rates, but they do have to do something with the people's perception of what it is that they're going to do with those rate cuts, because the rate cuts just don't do it anymore. See, here's the thing. Even if they were to cut rates to zero, they still wouldn't be able to stimulate the economy. And I think that's important for people to understand. They can stimulate it some, right? And they're going to get like definitely a market shock out of it. But the problem that they are facing right now is that they have a low neutral interest rate, right? And so this is really gets really hard to understand if you're not already confused by everything that's out there. The low neutral interest rate means that the interest rate that the Federal Reserve is neither accommodating nor restricting the economy, it's when they are neutral, right, is really close to zero. Now, it has been rising over the last, few years with the elevated inflation expectations and the elevated inflation and the higher everything is, as far as like people's demand for higher return on their capital investments. You're going to start seeing the neutral interest rate begin to rise. The only problem with this is that the inflation expectation comes when the inflation expectation comes down, the neutral interest rate has a hard time continuing to rise. Now, if the inflation expectation rises, this is important to understand because it's all about future expectations. If the inflation expectation continues to rise, it will pull the neutral interest rate up. The Federal Reserve could literally sit there with their hands still going, well, we don't know. We may have to wait to see what happens. And the neutral interest rate could continue to rise on an elevated inflation expectation and literally land right at where the Federal Reserve is positioned at a standing still pace, and they can become neutral to the economy. People, I don't think, really understand this. Right? And this is one of the concerns coming from the Federal Reserve because they don't know exactly where that neutral rate is. So if they were to lower rates and the neutral interest rate continues to rise, which they don't know if it is or isn't, then they could actually pass it, and the neutral would become below the Fed fund, or they would fall below the neutral interest rate, which would then be a stimulating effect on the economy. So since they don't want this, they are literally looking at a position in which that they are still above the neutral rate, which means that they are restrictive. It's not a stimulating effect to lower rates. Even if they were to lower rates to zero, they would not be able to drop enough below that neutral rate in order to stimulate the economy. It would have some stimulating effect. It would. I mean, I'm not trying to say it wouldn't. It would, but it's not enough for them to be able to combat a recessionary effect that's hitting the economy. And so the whole game now is to keep the inflation expectations somewhat elevated so they can keep the interest rates elevated, so that they can keep the perception of what it is that they are going to do with rates. So long as the neutral interest rate doesn't rise past the Fed funds rate, they will always have the ability to stimulate the economy with the idea of what it is that they can do with the Fed funds rate. And it wouldn't be really necessarily stimulating, but have stimulating effects. That's what I should say, because they wouldn't be able to combat a recession with it. It would take quantitative easings and all kinds of stuff to do that. All right. So very confusing stuff. I get it. Like, I know. And I mean, I've gone over this stuff so many times that it's really easy for me to just pour it out. But for most people, they are so confused by the idea of what it is that they are trying to do with the Fed funds rate and the neutral interest rate and the lower bound of zero, that it becomes very hard for them to say, okay, so what do I do with this information? Because I just don't even understand what the hell you just said, right? See, this is where it gets very complicated because most people then turn to the news and say, well, I'll just listen to what these people have to say because they're pretty smart people. And then they tell you about a 2% target. And this is probably one of the biggest misunderstandings of what it is that the Federal Reserve is doing with their strategy. I mean, just go and look at the what is it? And I can't remember the term of it. I don't know if I put it down in the description. I don't think I did. August 27th, 2020, Jerome Powell gave a speech. That is down in the description. In that speech, right, he said that they had changed the way that they look at inflation. And this is so critical because nobody knows this. Literally 99.9% of the people, Congress questioned them a little bit on this, and Jerome Powell almost clarified it. Like, if you knew what he said, then it was clear, but for most people, they missed it. Right. And I can't remember exactly what he had said, but Congress did question him. Right. And it was very close. We actually covered it in one of our videos. Right. But even they didn't catch it, and most people didn't hear it. The Federal Reserve is not going for a 2% target. They are going for a 2% average inflation rate over time. They are going for a 2% long run goal. So when they hear 2% long run goal, what most people think, right? And this is like, I know, because I communicate with so many people out there and I read all these articles and I think to myself, nobody sees it correctly. What they think is 2% goal over the long run means it hits 2% and then maintains 2% for a long run. That is not the Fed's strategy. It's very important to understand that. They have, like, that was their strategy before, was a 2% target, that they would try never to deviate from a 2% target. If inflation fell below 2%, they would try to adjust in interest rates to get the inflation rate up. If it was above 2%, then they would do the same thing, try to restrict the economy, bring it back down to 2%, and maintain this 2% target. This is what the Federal Reserve had attempted to do for years. They failed at it. They sucked. They never were at 2%. They can't do it. So for people to say they are going for a 2% long-term goal by maintaining 2% for a long term, that is very naive to think, because they can't ever do it. Ever. Like, they've never done it. Like, never in the history of time have they ever maintained 2% for any kind of length of time, right? So it's like they can't do that. But what they can do is have monetary policy elevated above 2% or under 2% consistently, above it or below it. Now, let me give you like a better idea. A lot of people have heard this analogy. It works really well, right? So let's give it an example of having a rifle, right? So I got this rifle and somebody says, "What are you aiming at?" And I was just like, "Well, there's a bullseye, and then right above the bullseye it says 1, and then right above that it says 2, right? And this is like the rings around the bullseye, and then it says 3, and then it says 4, right?" And so I got my rifle out there, right? And I'm aiming, and it was like, "What are you aiming at?" And I'm like, "I'm aiming at the 2." Right? I'm aiming at the 2. Go ahead and fire. Bang, right? And I hit the 3. And it was just like, "Oh man, okay, well, fire again," right? So I hit it, go, boom, and I hit 1. What's the average? 2%. I could hit 3 and 1 and 3 and 1 all day long, and I could average 2%. If that's the goal, right? If the goal is 2%, then I can hit 3 or 1 the entire time and hit an average of 2%. And never once ever being there. So this is important to understand, because this is the way the Federal Reserve is looking at the inflation over the long term. Most people don't see it that way. And so when you look at their words, when you look at their documents, and you look at some of the speeches that I leave down in the description, you're going to find that this average inflation rate over time is a very important indication of where it is that they want inflation today, because even in their own words, they say they want it moderately above 2% for some time. Moderately above 2%. What does that mean? They don't give any indication of what it is that moderate above 2%. I mean, is moderate to me like 2.1? Right? That's moderate, right? Maybe it's 3.1. I don't know. Like, what is moderately above 2%? And so when I see articles are like, "Man, it's stubbornly high inflation," it was like, well, that's part of their goal, right? That's part of their goal, was to have inflation expectation and inflation that was moderately above 2%. And if you go back and look at John Williams' speech, he was saying the problem that they needed to solve was an inflation that was persistently too high rather than too low, or at least an inflation expectation that was persistently too high rather than too low, because inflation expectation is an actual self-fulfilling prophecy. And so when we look at it this way, we can start to see it in a different fashion. We start to understand, it was just like, okay, so maybe they are achieving their goals in a way that they truly want it, but why don't they just come out here and just say it? Listen, we need an inflation expectation that is higher. We need to have a higher inflation so that we can get our monetary policy back, because the people would be pissed. The people are already pissed about the Federal Reserve causing inflation, and they could hardly even get the inflation that they were looking for. Right? So it's like, to tell the people, it was like, "Hey, listen, guys, we got some bad news for you. You know, all this money printing that we've done all these years with the quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4, and expansion of the balance sheet from $850 billion to over $4.5 trillion, and it really didn't cause the inflation expectations that we were really looking for. We need to create some inflation expectations. You guys got to really understand this. This is what we need to do to you." Like, how well received would the people take that? They would flip out, right? I mean, they would like lose their damn mind over something like that. You can't do that. But if you happen to have a very unique situation with the unusual and exigent circumstances of COVID, right? Here we have an absolute prime opportunity for the Federal Reserve to be able to do the things in which they needed to create the inflationary scenario that actually gets their monetary policy back into a condition in which that they are now able to use it. They were out of tools. Like people, you have to understand, like most people have to understand, like once they hit the lower bound of zero, that's it. Like they're done. And so now they have these words to use inside of the economy. They speak about what it is that they are attempting to do in this illusionary fashion. Oh, well, inflation is still persistently high, still not consistent with our goal, right? Is there any lies yet? I mean, think about what we know now, right? That they want inflation expectation to be elevated, that they're going for a moderately above 2% for some time. It's not achieved their goal yet, which is an average inflation rate over time, which has no mathematical formula for figuring it out. That's another thing that Jerome Powell said within that August 27th speech from 2020. And so when you understand that these are the problems that they had faced and the solutions that are now coming in present, right, that we look at, we can't look at it as a solution, or else the Federal Reserve wouldn't have the ability to conduct their monetary policy. We have to look at it as if it's a problem. Oh, damn, stubbornly high inflation. Oh, no, what are we going to do? Might have to keep the interest rates elevated. We don't know. Cuts possible. That's right there. That little narrative that they speak about, like, yeah, we'll cut this time, but we don't know about next time. Gonna have to see. Don't know. That is the monetary policy right there. Right? It's not the interest rate adjustment. Think about it. Like they cut rates and mortgages went up. Mortgage rates went up. It did not go in the direction that everybody thought it was. Every single realtor in the world told every single person who was selling a house or buying a house that they were going to have the opportunity for not only a sale, but they were also going to have the opportunity to buy it at a cheaper mortgage, and they were all wrong. Right? And I'm not trying to say that that I was going to call that the mortgage rates were going to go up. I'm not saying that at all. What I've been saying the entire time is that the cutting of rates from the Fed Reserve is not the impact on the economy that people think it does. It has lag time to it. 6 months to a year down the road before those rate cuts have anything to do with the economic effects that are happening within the economy today. I mean, here we are. We're just probably seeing some of the effects of the initial rate cuts. All right. Man, how long did I babble on for? 22 minutes straight. That was pretty good. Man, I am so looking forward to that play. Okay. Where are my glasses at? You guys having fun? Jesus, what did I do with those things? Did I drop them down here? Yeah, I did. I thought I did. Okay. You guys are awesome for sticking it out. How many people have hit the like button? 58 people, 203 likes. I got Freddie playing basketball, so he might pop out here in the next half hour or so if we stay out that long. Let's cruise up here just a little ways. Can't have interest rates at zero. That was insane. Yeah, they did it for a long time. All right, you snooze, you lose. All right, agree, Carl. Got to avoid that arbitrary fiduciary duty from a few words in a video. Trump, baby, let's go. Yeah, Trump is like, I don't know how many times that I have heard him talk some lunacy about the Federal Reserve and what it is. He was like, well, I don't think I'll fire Jerome Powell now. I was like, you never had the ability to fire him in the first place, bro. Don't even say that you won't. You can't. Right? That is like, that doesn't make any sense. You quit lying to the people. Right? I mean, one little tiny lie is all kinds of lies. I can fire him if I wanted to. No, you can't. You don't have any say. You can't fire him. All right. And even if you wanted to, you can't. So when you say you won't, it doesn't matter. Right. It's just like that stuff is just so like, and then you think about it, like before he left, right? Before he left his first presidency, he was saying that the Federal Reserve should lower rates into negative territory and print money, and the rich people knew what he was talking about. Right. This is what he said. And now, when you think about some of the things he was saying just a few months ago about how the Federal Reserve knows that they're doing wrong by keeping the by lowering rates, and that they should be keeping them elevated. And now he's coming into office, and of course, that he's going to want to lower rates, right? But just a few months ago, he was saying that would be a bad deal to lower rates. So this whole thing that his speak of the Fed is the credible threat. And we have to understand that, because there is literally nothing he can do as president except for appoint the people who are going to be in there. Like, he has some say in that, the presidency and the government. Right? But ultimately, when it comes in, we've covered this in videos in the past. But ultimately, once they are in that position, that's it. They're there. Right? And they cannot be kicked out for a vote that they have made. They can't be fired for that, right? They have to have done something like illegal, essentially. And so once they're there, right? And now when I even think about it, it's like firing Jerome Powell makes very little sense to me, because I'm thinking, what are you going to do about changing the other 11 members' vote, right? And like people say, well, they all follow Jerome. No, they don't. Have you ever listened to them? Have you ever listened to the things that they say? I mean, there is a lot of speeches out there that they cover all kinds of topics that aren't necessarily in line with what it is that Jerome Powell is saying. And I've never heard Jerome Powell say anything that was outside of the behalf of the FOMC in a final belief or vote. You know? It's like people are like, hey, we're going to fire Jerome Powell. And then what? Nothing. Nothing changes. Yeah, this is like, so you're going to change absolutely nothing about monetary policy because you have 11 other people who are voting. And so once you understand that Jerome Powell is nothing more than a messenger, it's like literally killing the messenger. And then, don't get me wrong, he might be a smart guy. He might be able to talk economics. He might be able to talk it in such a way that is like, it sounds like he's in charge of stuff. But to also understand that there is all kinds of process that goes down in order for the monetary policy to take place. And the discussion that is happening within the Federal Reserve itself is quite deep, and it's quite extensive. And when you look at some of the statements that I have left down in the description, I mean, you can see that it's all over the place. What it is that the Federal Reserve is truly needing within their monetary policy, and it's quite different from what it is that's being portrayed out there on the mainstream media. So it drives me crazy to think that so many people out there, if you misunderstand what it is that the Federal Reserve is attempting to do, how it is that you possibly, like, if you can't understand what their goal is, if you misunderstand their goal, then how could you possibly strategize in accordance to their what they are doing? Like, most people are like, man, they're really trying hard for that 2%. Man, okay, they're like, and they got it in their head. They're going for 2%. They're going for 2%. They're going for 2%, right? And meanwhile, I'm thinking they're going for moderately above 2% for some time. They're not going for 2%. They're right where they want it. Why would they screw with their monetary policy? Like, if I was the Federal Reserve and they were looking for moderately above 2%, I would keep monetary policy right where it's at. Got low unemployment, got jobs working, got inflation coming down, moderately above 2%. Right. Sounds good. Life is good. Oh, need to change here. Right? I mean, it was just like, people were like, what are the Fed going to do? And I was like, if I was the Federal Reserve and according to their own strategy, nothing. Like, I would do nothing at all. All right. And not that I'm saying they shouldn't do anything. Like, I don't know. What do I care? I'm just trying to figure out what it is that they are doing so that I can figure out what I should be doing with my, personal choices and decisions and things that I got going on in my life. Like, doing a play, man, that is going to be so much fun. I am so looking forward to doing this. It's a half an hour play. And it's going to be fun, and it's going to be funny. All right. Owned by the banks, all-nighters. Okay. The Fed is very centralized with shareholders, but private like trust. How about that auto industry, though? Elon says, prepare for auto apocalypse. Buy more silver. That's right, Cody. In the end, just buy more silver. You'll be all right. Then you don't have to worry about the third party. You don't have to worry about the power grid. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff because you got the physical metal in your hand with no worries about the outside anything. All right, keep hitting that like button, everybody. We got 29 minutes into this video. We're kicking butt, having a lot of fun. You always put the sacrifice out first. All right. When his tenure is over, how I'd the replaced chosen? Step right up, folks. Like any film flam man, he wants to make you a deal that you can't understand. Okay. The Fed is democracy as disgusting as the D word. Alright, let's cruise down here. Do you think there may be video spread credit default? Oh, why video spread? Why video? Jesus. All right, widespread credit default if unemployment keeps ticking up, though it has plateaued a bit for now. If so, how do you think people can hedge their investment against this? Okay, so this is the problem that I think I see is just like what you're kind of looking at is like, how do we deal with the what if scenario that may or may not take place, and how do we hedge against that? So you're going to want to hedge against a what if. Like, to me, like, I can sit here and think of 1,000 what ifs. How are you going to hedge against all those? And that's going to be very difficult. Wouldn't it be better just to understand it for what it is, or maybe the strategy of what it is that the Federal Reserve is going for, so you can hedge against that? Because that's probably what's going to be more likely the outcome of what it is that's going to be coming to the future of what it is that the Federal Reserve is attempting to do with their strategy. Because even back in 2018, if you think about what John Williams was saying, you probably could have thought, okay, when COVID hits and inflation is running, man, he was getting that speech is actually hitting on what it is that the Federal Reserve was looking for. Right? And so let's kind of take it back just a little bit. The Federal Reserve is mandated to do two things, right? This is important to know. The Federal Reserve is mandated to do two things. They're not mandated to keep the housing market elevated or to make rich people rich or the stock market to stay up. They're mandated to have low inflation with stable prices. Now, I don't know exactly what that means when moderately above 2% seems to be still low inflation. I don't know, maybe, right? So anyway, low inflation, stable prices, and full employment. Now, full employment seems to be kind of like an interesting term. And the reason why they have these two mandates together, right? Low inflation with stable prices and full employment is because if inflation starts to ramp up, the problem here's the okay, hold on, let me take it back a little bit. The way that the Federal Reserve would find inflation is by increasing the employment. See, now this is where I think a lot of people kind of really misunderstand what it is that the Federal Reserve was doing with their monetary policy. And because it's like people almost got it right, and it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot, it's very logical the way they think, but they got it somewhat wrong. In that this is what most people think. The Fed lowers rates, people borrow money to go out there and buy houses, cars, and go on vacation. I've even said that myself a million times. Okay, that's not exactly right. Now, it is right they do that it increases consumption, but that's not what they're attempting to do, right? Because what they are really attempting to do, and this is important because I guess even I saying it 1,000 times the way I have, the Fed lowers rates and gets people to go out there and buy houses, cars, and go on vacation. That's not the way that the Fed Reserve would conduct themselves when they had attempted to create an inflationary scenario. What they would do is lower rates to try and get business investment started, and that would get employment to rise. When more people were working, more people were consuming, more consumption was throwing supply-demand imbalances out, and the inflation would be found. So they would do it through employment. And in fact, they have what they refer to as the neutral employment rate, right? Where there's neither accommodating nor restricting the economy, much like, the Fed funds rate. And so when we think about the employment rate and whether or not that it's accommodating nor restricting the economy, when the Federal Reserve wanted to increase inflationary scenarios, what they would do is lower interest rates, business investment would kick up, employment would start, people would start consuming more from the new money that they got, and supply and demand imbalances, inflation would be found. Quite opposite, if they wanted to create not necessarily a deflation, but a disinflationary scenario or bring inflation back down, They would create a situation where they would restrict monetary policy, making it harder on businesses to invest, which would mean that they would most likely lay off or not hire people, which would then decrease the amount of employment that was happening out there. And then you would start finding consumption coming down in line with supply, and the inflationary scenario would be dissipate, right? And so this is how the Federal Reserve would conduct themselves. Now, problem came, right? The problem came to the Federal Reserve when unemployment hit zero, or hit a very low rate, historically low, close to zero, right? It was at 3% at one point, or however unemployment rate was. Obama was taking credit for it. Trump loved it, absolutely. Went all the way into the Biden administration until that COVID thing was going to hit, right? And so during Biden administration, everybody was just like, oh man, look at the employment, it runs up, because everybody was told to stay home. But until that moment, it was historically low unemployment. Everybody was loving it, right? You could go out there and just get any job you want, ghost a job, and just go find another job immediately. They were just didn't even care. People just loved it. Problem with that is that the Federal Reserve was like, where the hell is the inflation, right? Where's the inflation? We have this historically low unemployment, all these people at work, and where's the inflationary scenario? We can't find it, right? And so now the problem that the Federal Reserve was facing was like, how the hell do we stimulate the economy if we can't find an inflationary scenario when the unemployment is even at a historically low unemployment rate, right? This is a major issue for the Fed. What do we do? This is the Fed saying this. And they're like, okay, so since that doesn't work anymore, it's going to have to take like whatever it is that we can do to create an inflationary or disinflationary scenario without the use of the employment part of things, right? Because they already know that they can let employment run as hot as it wants. Like they can have an incredibly tight labor market, unemployment historically low, still not find the inflationary scenario that they were looking for. A lot of people will disagree with this because of things that happened over COVID, but it don't matter. This is what the Federal Reserve is saying. So understanding it in this fashion, right? That the unemployment or the employment part of things that used to create the inflationary or disinflationary scenario that the Federal Reserve would be looking for to try and stimulate or restrict the economy is no longer needed. So they can keep full employment constant. Like they can always have very low unemployment, and it doesn't matter whether or not they're trying to be in an inflationary or disinflationary scenario. It just doesn't make any difference to them. That part of the dual mandate will just always be satisfied, regardless. Right? They don't have any concern of whether or not that's going to be like, a problem for them. Like to allow unemployment to rise so much to create a disinflationary scenario to combat, or to deal with the other side of their dual mandate. They won't have to let unemployment rise. Like they can keep it, incredibly low, or allow a situation in which that there is incredibly low unemployment and not worry about it causing the inflationary scenario. So they're just like, that side of the dual mandate is like almost zero concern to them, right? In fact, they even refer to it as like inflation's stubborn, like something about like the inflation's insensitivity to a stubbornly low unemployment market, or a stubbornly tight labor market, I think is how it was referred to. I'm sorry, like I said, I don't have my notes in front of me, but it was something of that nature. And so that's important to think. Like this is what Michelle Bowman was saying, that even though we had this tight labor market going on, it didn't create the inflationary scenario that they were looking for. And again, this was prior to COVID, before all that stuff went down. So the Federal Reserve just looks at the other side of their dual mandate, which is low and stable prices, right? And that right now, with their strategy of moderately above 2%, I think, like, I don't know how else to see it, but other than they're like, they're nailing it. They're like right in line with what it is that they are looking to do. What time is it? 38 minutes into this. This is a lot of fun, guys. You guys having fun? If you're having fun, hit that like button. 220 people with 95 likes, which should be well over 150 likes right now. All right, low unemployment means nothing when the wages haven't risen in 50 years. So that's something that's totally different. See, that's probably one of the reasons why they don't have to be concerned about having low unemployment anymore, because you're right. The wages don't keep up because we don't have production and savings. This is what we were going over earlier today's live stream. Like in today's live stream that we did earlier, well, it was a great live stream too, by the way, guys. I really enjoyed that one. Um, but in that video, we were talking about the production of a nation, right? And how it is that if you are a production saving nation, that you're going to be able to have a fairly decent life, that you're going to be able to raise your standard of living in. But if you're a service industry position, like how is it that you're going to just like here we go. Imagine back in the 60s, right? You have 18-year-old girl, her 18-year-old brother, the twins, right? And this is what you can imagine is that like they just graduated high school, but they happen to still be at home and they're going to like, they're going to work for the summer and they're going to go off to college. But during that summer, her brother's going to put a car together because he has the knowledge to do it, and she's going to go down to the cafe that's down, a couple blocks down the street, and she's going to go over there and serve meals, and then she's going to buy a car at the end of the summer. This was a concept. This was not so far out of belief that they could do it. The ability for this guy to put this car together and have a car built in his garage that he could drive around, and it was something that was actually reasonable to do, go get a wrecker or something like that and piece it back together. And then going down and working a cafe for, the entire summer so that you can buy some, whatever beater that you can get to work on, or drive around. This was a very reasonable concept for most people to do, right? Now, in order for this same thing to happen, right? In order for this same thing to happen, the same like belief to have a brand new car again, right? That you could piece together is an impossibility. Nobody's going to piece together some Denali, right? Nobody's going to piece together some, there might be somebody out there who might be able to do it, but that's not very likely, right? But yet back in the 60s, an 18-year-old kid in his garage with his buddies could definitely put a car together, right? And the idea that you could go down there and work the cafe and work it very hard and save all your monies and tips and everything that came from it, you could probably buy a car at the end of the summer. Right? And so these two things were a very reasonable concept. Well, now you have $100,000 cars. How the hell do you compete? Like, how do you go and find a job in which that you're going to work and then buy a car? Like, even if you were to work a summer right now and you were to save up $3, $4, $5,000 by the end of summer, like, you might be able to buy a decent car, I guess, but it isn't going to be like a new car. It isn't going to be a completely rebuilt brand new car. It's going to be an old car with hundreds of thousands of miles on it that's coming to the end of its life. Right? And so this is important to understand, right? The time back in the day where that service industry could have been traded for the job of the kid working over there at his garage building a car. You see, they were sharing somewhat of a similar experience because they were working inside of a production saving nation. This is what we could do back in the day. Well, now we don't live in this sort of same nation. We aren't producers savers. So when you have people out there who are still flipping the burgers, who are saying, man, it's really hard to try and find any kind of way of life when I'm flipping these burgers. You're right. Like there was a time that you could flip burgers and you could have like this crappy little apartment and you can, make away with that. Now, no way, because what you're going to do is you're going to be competing against not only somebody who's flipping burgers, but then they're also got online sales that they are doing. They got some other side hustle that they're performing. And now you're competing with all these people out there who are making money and you are saying, man, I'm flipping burgers, but it ain't enough. That's right. It ain't enough. Right? It's not going to pay you enough. The work that you're doing, you're trading out there. Nobody out there has the same skills or has the skills that are matching that are equivalent to it anymore. In order to have the same sort of equivalent set of skills, it's going to have to look out there at another service thing that's happening that's similar to yours, and that's the equivalent of it. It's not the equivalent of having, being in an area in which that, like, if you had everybody. This is one of the reasons here. Man, I just babbled, don't I? Good Lord. Slow down, right? If you have a community that all of a sudden has a bunch of new construction happening, right? Don't tell me like you don't see that community start to thrive off of that. right? All of a sudden, all them construction workers, all that material being delivered, all that stuff that's happening there, all the new people who are coming into that community, you start seeing all of a sudden the elevation of the stores, the type of stores that are there due to the property owners who are there, and you see this expansion start to happen, right? So if you see like that sort of thing happening, it's because of the production that is happening there. And people are being very industrious. So as that industrious spills over into the next layer, which is the people who are out there providing the services for the producers, then you start, and the property owners are ultimately the people at the top. But as this begins to take place, you can see the industriousness happen. Right? People all of a sudden, man, this is really cool. Look at all the restaurants that are doing well, the hotels are doing well, the material suppliers are doing well, the gas stations are doing well, like everything's doing well. And then construction comes to an end, like they've done with it, right? Now the construction permits are slowed down, there's not as many, and now the money starts to slow down quite a bit within that community. You start finding some of the luxury experiences that people were going for starting to back away. They're no longer going to the tanning salon, right? They're no longer eating as much sushi or drinking the coffee. So you start seeing some of these restaurants start to slow down, shut down. It's the same thing, no matter what. Production and savings is by far the only thing that is out there that is going to create an economic environment in which that the average person is going to feel somewhat okay and comfortable about going to work and being able to provide for themselves in. But if you do not have a production saving nation, what you have is consumption and debtor nation. And you have to, and you're like, the things that you are consuming, your necessities are one thing, but when it comes to some of the enjoyments in life, like a new car or a house or something of that nature, something that's a little bit elevated, you have to compete against people who are borrowing. So you have a class of people who are trying to work really hard, like flip the burgers, to try and earn enough money to buy an item that some people are borrowing money to get. So now it's not even some people, now most people are doing it. So you're going to find people who are down at the bottom, not even possible, because so many people just borrow money to buy that $100,000 car. There's no way that a guy flipping burgers is going to save up enough money to buy the Denali. Right? When there was a time when, a kid actually could go piece a car together if they wanted. All right, let's go check out this super chat. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be out here, guys. I'm going to end this any minute. All right. Night and 10, $5. Thank you so much. 3 and 2 on the dice, 32-degree. The truth is in plain sight. Interesting. Thanks for the super chat, man. I really appreciate it. All right, keep hitting the like button, guys. We're up to 108, and I'd love to see it at like 150 right now. If we had it at 150, I think the algorithm would pick up the video, start spreading it around. We get more people in here. It'd be awesome if we had like 1,000 people watching at one time. I've had that happen in the past, and it was cool because I had like George Gammon and like I think Economic Ninja were both on at like the same time. I thought, holy crap, man, this is a hell of a stream. And of course, that hasn't happened in a while. Oh, of course, both of those guys have popped on from time to time. So, no worse sentence in every. No, the worst sentence in every UE stream. What is that? What is the worst sentence, Cody? Do you think the stock market's gonna crash pretty soon? I don't know. I put money in it. George had some great live streams today. Did he? I need to go and watch some of those things. I need to go watch some of All Nighters videos too. I catch one every once in a while. I'll find one out there. Economic Ninja, a bullshit artist. Well, David, I guess it happens. Okay, the end of the stream sentence. Oh, you let me know stuff? All right. My 21-year-old daughter told me she wanted a Tesla. I told her I would disown her if she got one. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I sold the Corolla to a 17-year-old girl who was absolutely ecstatic to have it. And she was just like so happy with the car. She says it only has 160,000 miles on. I could drive it for another 100,000. I said, yes, you can. Go for it. I said, I would love to see you drive this car for 100,000 miles, another 100,000 miles. And I would love to see you just absolutely just excel in life because you got a nice chance at life with a reliable vehicle, and this being the one, because I told so many stories and did so many videos out of that thing. I even told it, I was just like, you should go and start a YouTube channel and talk about the story of getting the car, and I will promote it on my channel. I'll get you like, 1,000 subscribers right away. And that just scared the hell out of her, and she wouldn't even consider it after that. So anyway, I got to do a different approach next time. uh, I'm all in Ascoin. Well, good for you. Hey, then we got another $5 from What is that? Rafter? Where's my glasses? I don't even know if I can see it with this. Raffer Jacks. My glasses are terrible here. Keeping up the great work. I'm pulling all-nighter to meet end of year deadlines for my small consulting business. Any advice on paying off house early? I don't know, man. See, like, I kind of struggle with that same question on whether or not I should pay my house off early or make principal payments. And everybody was just like, well, yeah, dude, you always make principal payments if you can. And I would agree to that to some extent, especially when it comes to like high interest payment stuff like credit cards or something. Absolutely pay off as much as you can, as often as you can, to get that thing down and out of there, out of your, out from under your belt as quickly as possible. But when it comes to like a house payment and you have a 3.25% interest rate, or 3 1/8, it's not even 3.25, it's 3 1/8. Right, that's what my interest payment is on my house. And I think, okay, so I could pay off the interest or pay off the principal on it and not have to pay the interest on it. But then what you have to consider is that money that you are using to pay the principal, that is going to save the interest of a 3 1/8%, could be gaining something far more than 3 1/8. Right? It could be getting 10%, maybe even 20%. Who knows? Like, if you're timing it right within Coinbase, like I was, it would be up 280% or whatever the hell that stock is now for me. It's just incredible, right? And so when you consider like how much you think you can make beyond the 3 1/8%, it may make more sense to, instead of pay off that principal, which is at 3 1/8, which is really low. I mean, you think about it, that's like just about inflation, right? So you could actually increase your purchasing power by taking that, moving it over to something that's even got a 10% interest, and then gain a 7% purchasing power on your money, as opposed to paying it off early right now and, saving the 3 1/8%. See where I'm kind of getting at? And so like with such a low interest rate, it may not necessarily make sense to pay off the house early. Now, the strategy that I have taken, and of course I used it up because I needed to at times, but I've taken the strategy that I'm going to make future payments into the house so that I will actually have like a cushion. If everything kind of goes south for a month or whatever, I can back off on my payments because I've already made future payments taking place. It doesn't pay off the principal, it doesn't pay off any interest or save you any money on interest, but it does give you that cushion that if you're living, month to month, like most of us are doing, and need this monthly income, and something happens where that monthly income gets disrupted, that it's just like, okay, well, I can back off on the house payment. I don't have to worry about that one this month because I've already made future payments. And so that would be, that would be pretty cool to have if you have a low interest rate loan or something, is to make that kind of cushion payment, get yourself out there, 2, 3, 4, 6 months, a year. That would be really rad. And just, once you get out to a year, then you're going to be like, well, okay, cool. Any extra that I'll do, I'll just keep making my house payments, stay that year ahead. And then any extra after that, you can start making towards principal payments, right? And then start saving on the interest because you'll have like a year cushion or something. Yeah, if you weren't making investments or something. So anyway, that's my advice on paying off the house early. Like if it was a high interest, then I'd definitely pay it off early. All right, let's cruise on down here. Hey, Mr. Balloon Pimp, right on. I saw your email. I haven't read it yet. I'm going to go check that out here in just a little bit. All-nighter, I am sure they will. Just remember that the early bird gets the worm and the early dog sets the turd. All right. Carl, interest rates were in the teens in the 80s. People went bonkers with stimmy bucks and put it all in real estate as they have to cool down the market. So they have to cool down the market. People work until 65 for Social Security anyways. What is that? Nitrim 10. Thank you for the $5. Simon, what are your thoughts on advertising? So many Gen Z kids think that they can make a living as an influencer. Well, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm like, I've thought about it and I've done some sponsorships on this channel and I've done like, consider the advertising like possibly on the other platforms if I was to build it up. I was going to build up a TikTok, following so that I could, try and push some of that stuff. And to be honest with you, I just can't freaking stand TikTok. It's annoying as hell. It's the worst platform in the entire world. Anyway, um, since it's possible, why not? Like, that's what I kind of see is like if it's possible and these kids are getting the attention. Now I guess it depends on how they're getting the attention, but then again, at the end of the day, what does it really matter? Like, in my opinion, what difference does it make? It's just my opinion on whether or not they should be doing that for entertainment. And I get like a lot of, there's a lot of ways of making money online when it comes to video content and being an influencer or just a content creator and being popular out there on the internet. It gives you a lot of ability to find channels of making money. And I tell you, I see it. I can see all these different channels of making money, and I could have made a lot of money on this with this YouTube channel, with this following 150,000 subscribers. People who have achieved this level, they look at me like, what are you doing, dude? Like, you are absolutely insane for not taking advantage of the following that you have built. Like, I've heard it. Like, I mean, I've had people that literally tell me those words. Like, it's just like, dude, you are absolutely insane for it. You should be like completely rolling in it right now, just having all the kind of money you could ever possibly imagine. And I see it and I'm like, yeah, I know. Right? I know. But I don't feel good about it. Like, I don't feel like I go and I do the sponsorships and I'm thinking, holy crap, that was a lot of money. Man, my family could really use, like, this is so awesome. Like, I can do all these wonderful things, right, with this money. And then I walk around going, man, why did I do this? Like, I had this feeling of why, it was just like, I didn't agree with this product. I didn't, it didn't feel right. Like, nothing about it was like comfortable or feeling right for me. So I thought to myself, man, you don't need to do that, man. You're doing this to pay your bills. You pay your bills on time. What do you want? Right? You make money that you can invest with. If you want to make more money, you know how to make more money. You don't need to do these sponsorships in order to do it. You don't need to be pushing products. There's, little ways of going out there and pushing things that I just don't do that I should be doing and that I might get motivated to start doing here pretty soon. But when I think about what it is that I was trying to do with this channel, I was trying to learn. That's all I really wanted from this channel was to learn as much as I possibly could about economics and share what it is that I was learning with, people out there so I could have a discussion about it. That was like everything. That was everything to me right there. Making money was a very small task that I was trying to do. $100 on Google because that was the threshold to make money. So I wasn't trying. Like, none of that stuff was I trying for. And I think about it, the more I try for something, the less I get an opportunity of doing it. The more I just kind of let it go, the more it just kind of naturally just pops into my life. I was thinking, it was just like, man, I was missing that play. I was thinking about it, and it was like, man, that was fun. It would be nice to have something that I could work on, like a project like that, to really expand like what it is that I can do as far as the skills as entertainment or just being on stage or being present, being up there presenting or telling story or acting or doing whatever. And here comes, the, the old acting coach director saying, hey, come down and audition. And then I get the dang part, right? So now I get to do this. And I'm excited about it. Like, I'm super excited about it. it's going to take time and effort, and it's going to consume all kinds of stuff. It's going to be stressful to try and get it done and show up for all the rehearsals and all that, and then I get to go and do the shows. And then at the end of it all, I get to say I did it. And I'm really looking forward to doing that. Just like I'm looking forward to getting down to Vegas to go speak on stage at Mike Zuber's One Rental at a Time conference. Like, this is the type of stuff that I want to be doing. And I get to do it. Like, that's the fun part of life, right? You know, it's just like all the other stuff, like, whatever. Like, I don't need to make all that money. Like, the money is okay. The money's okay if you had, like, you know, if there's things that you want to do. People might want to fly all over the world and go to Paris and drink fancy food, or drink fancy wine and eat food and do all that other stuff, which sounds cool, but that's not like, that's it's not for me, man. I want to do like stuff like that play. I want to be out here sharing my ideas with Economics. I want to be on stage down in Vegas with my buddy Mike and Lumberjack Landlord and All Nighter and all those guys. That's what I want to be doing. That's what I am doing. Like, that's like, I'm doing what I want to do. And that's that. It's easy, right? Life is easy if you make it easy. It could have more money. I could always use more money, right? Who couldn't use more money? It'd be nice to have. It'd be nice to have a new truck. It'd be nice to go shoot machine guns out of helicopters in Vegas, right? It'd be fun to go do that kind of stuff. All right, congrats on getting the part. That is awesome. I hope someone takes video. It could be cool to see. Yeah, and I think the problem with video of it is I think there's copyright infringements on it, right? Because you gotta, I don't know, maybe there's not. I'll ask about it, but I think it does get videoed, but I don't think that video can actually be put out there for like commercial kind of thing or whatever, without the copyright infringement part of things. So anyhow, I'll ask about it and see if it's out there. But anyway, if you're going to be in the Astoria area over there, I forget when this place starts. It's probably going to start here in a couple of weeks, really. They don't give you much time to rehearse and study and stuff, man. That play that I did with the Weir, which I had to learn an Irish accent, which I absolutely sucked at. So that's what I would say. Anyhow, I remember that one was like, I don't know, 5-6 weeks of rehearsals, and then boom, one show, and then they shut the theater down. I'm like, dang. But that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun doing that play. And the actors were really cool because they're like all these seasoned actors who really understood, like, you know, the whole theater thing and how it all went down, and I was just completely like ignorant towards the whole thing. It was just like they just get up there and just immediately just start acting. Boom, okay. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm like, I don't even know what place I am. I'm just up there stumbling, and they're like, that's cool, dude, no worries. And they just like helped me right along. And it was a lot of fun. It was like, you know, I had a lot of people compliment me on that and tell me that I did a good job. And, you know, really that's, you know, that kind of thing where you can take somebody away for a while and entertain them and let them enjoy the experience. That's what I love. Like, that's why I do bingo every Sunday, why I call it the bingo game. It's because those people for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, are taken away from what it is that they got going on in their life so that they can hang out, get a social hour in, experience the show, have the jokes, you know, eat some food and enjoy that. And to be like part of that whole community that does that, that's like, you know, that's everything in the world to me. I like it. I like that entertaining stuff. What's All Nighter posting? He's posting all kinds of YouTube videos here. All right. Go down to Miami. Entire condo buildings are just empty and being used as launder money. Gosh, meet bingo. I should go. Still Fridays? No, it is, Brittany. It is Sunday at 6:30 at the Workers Tavern. So if you happen to be in Astoria, up here in the Pacific Northwest, you're in Astoria, Oregon, Sunday, 6:30, under the bridge. That's a good way to find the place. It's right underneath the bridge. It's the Workers Tavern, right? We do meet bingo, goes till about 9 o'clock. And you might want to get there early if you really want to see. Like right now, it's not so bad, but there's times when the place fills up quite quickly, especially when the fun stream. Yeah, thanks, Cody. Simon seems more like a kingpin kind of guy. Huh. All right. Ditch public education and invest in charter schools. Sunday 6:30. That's right. Okay, thanks. Of course, you know who I am. Yeah, I just didn't want to say your name quite outright, Brittany. But yeah, I know who you are. You should definitely come down. Now, if I got it right, and I'm pretty sure I do, this is the same Brittany. Now, I don't know how many people have heard me tell the story of uh, of the girl who came up at work and put her fist on my desk and says, "Hey, dude, you need to go and start a blog or a YouTube channel or something because you are driving us all crazy because you or nobody understands what you're saying and you're driving us crazy." That's it right there. So I'm letting you. That's funny. All right. Yeah, all right, Brittany. Yeah, they're gonna start talking. Knuckles on the desk. Yeah, that's her. All right, I'm sure I make six figures slinging lattes. No, no, you won't, dummy. Well, no, that's not true. Like you could probably make six figures slinging lattes if you're in the right place, all right? But most people are not going to share that as sort of experience where they get to live, be in a high end area and then have a low rent or low housing costs or something like that. Like generally, if you're in like making $100,000 doing lattes, and if you're lucky, you're not going to have to suffer the consequences of being in a high ritzy area in order to be able to make $100,000 selling lattes. So it ends up being kind of comparative. Like if you're making $100,000 doing lattes and you own the hut, right, and it's a drive-through, and you live up here in the Pacific Northwest and you own your house or something like that, that's probably going to do quite well, right? Especially if you're off in one of the other communities that's not like say in Astoria or something like that. All right. Brittany's just laughing away. Yeah, Brittany kind of launched it. Yeah. All right. Because yeah, I did. I went right after that. So like to finish the story off, after Brittany told me I had to go start a YouTube channel or blog, which is something I had considered for a while, but it was just like she was like, "No, go do it," right? It was like literally just like I don't even think I was doing lunch or something. I think I literally took a break, went down to my car, recorded that video, and then came in and uploaded it. And it was like, again, it took a long time for the channel to ever do anything. Like it went months and months went by before anybody ever watched videos or it caught on to anything. Like it went on. So thank you, Brittany. Thank you for thank you for motivating me that day. Not sure what I missed was talking to the old man. How much do you think it would cost to book a last minute flight to America? I need to be there for Sunday. Well, dude, it's you don't have to be like you don't have to be. I do it every single Sunday, so you don't have to stress it, man. Every Sunday for like probably 18 years. I think I've been calling bingo 18 years now. It's one of the reasons why I think I was able to do so well, like not only to do the play, but to do this channel, to do a lot of stuff is because of all the years that I was calling bingo. Every week I would get up in front of anywhere from 20 to 50 people and call out the numbers and tell jokes and present and just be there. And I remember when I would first do it, I would be so nervous, especially if there was a lot of people in the bar to try and get their attention. And over the years, like not only did I learn how to like control a crowd, but to be able to use like people's own curiosity in order to get their attention so that it would make my job easier to call the numbers. Like a lot of times, like for example, if I couldn't get people's attention, like I'm calling out numbers and people keep asking, what number did you call? Whatever. And there's a lot of like chatter that's happening in the bar. I'll all of a sudden just think of a funny story that happened in the week, and I'll just like pop off with this story, right? And start telling people, about this, particular sale I did that was, that had this funny story to it, or just something that was going on that week. And everybody would be listening, right? And everybody would all of a sudden just start focusing in on what I would say, and I would get their attention, be able to start doing the show again, or be able to do the show. That's kind of the way I feel, but be able to start calling numbers again. And so I learned these little tricks of dealing with the crowd, especially when they were like kind of not being focused. One of the other things I would do is I would call a number, and if you never played bingo before, you call a letter and then you call a number, right? So what I would do is I would call the letter, but then I wouldn't call the number. I would hesitate. So I'd be like, B. And I would sit there and everybody would be like, and all of a sudden the bar would just stop and be listening and hung up. It was just like, and then I would call the number out there, and then I would have everybody's attention again, and I'd be able to start doing the show. So it was just like I learned all these little things about being up in front of people and being able to acquire or attract their attention to get to get the show moving, to get things like presented out there and talking again, and keep everybody focused and in line and following the right game, and just being part of it and guiding them for 2.5 hours and doing all that every single Sunday for years. Like I said, it's like 18 years now. I think that all that practice of doing all that stuff is really what gave me the ability to do a lot of the things that I'm doing out here on the internet right now. All right, are we talking economics? What are we talking about? I just want to make sure that thing fired up pretty easy. Bully bingo, you wait on me. All right, not my skill, but I admire that about you. What you could quit your mind in a way that was amazing. Kirk, man, be nice. All right. But you don't. But you do it naturally. Thank you. I do. I try to make it seem natural, and the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Just like anything in life, like it doesn't matter what it is. The more you do it, the more natural it's going to end up being. At first, it feels unfamiliar. Like even people. Here's the problem. Like I find, like I've come to observe a lot more things. The older I get, the wiser I get. The more I look back on my own life and some of the things that I've done, and then I recognize some of the things and behaviors within other people out there. And think to myself, wow, yeah, I get it. I know why. I know why you're doing that, right? And so when I start seeing things in my life that really tell me, it's just like, why they do it? It's because it's familiar, right? They don't like it. Like I listened to somebody not too long ago talk about how they just cannot stand all the drama in their life. They talk. It was just like, oh, this person did this, and and they list off all these things, and I'm like, wow. I know a lot of people. I don't have any issues. I'm not a single person out there. Like I have no drama, right? And yet this person does, and I'm thinking, how is it that you have all this drama in your life? And I realize, wow, they grew up with drama. They've always lived drama. They've had drama constantly. And if they don't have it, it feels very unfamiliar. And they don't want to feel unfamiliar. They want to feel familiar. And even though they know it's toxic and it's bad, it's familiar and it feels like family, and family feels comfortable. And so even though they don't like it, they secretly love tension. Like they love it. Right? And so they want to be in that tension because that's what's familiar and that's what feels good, even though they know in their head that it isn't right. Right? They say it outright. I can't stand all this toxic. Why can't it just be normal? Right? And then they just fade right into it because that's what's like normal to their life. And most people are just like, well, one thing would be normal is maybe not to put yourself in that position. Right? But they can't help it because they're like, oh no, I got to deal with this. I got to deal with this thing and whatever. And then they got more drama going on. And I laugh. And I think, okay. So I see that happening in a lot of times. Like I even see it happening at work. Right? Like I will find times that people will, like something as simple as like a request that's out of the norm from a customer. And this out of the normal request, which may be a very simple one, but it's not one that we would typically do. And it feels like it's being taken, like, you feel like you have this being taken advantage of feeling. And all of a sudden it flips a switch inside of the person who's dealing with this customer. And I watch it happen and I'm thinking, why is that taking place? Like, what was going on inside your head that you just got triggered by this little extra that this customer is asking for, which isn't that big of a deal, but it is something outside of the norm. And now all of a sudden you're triggered by it. And I was just like, this is something to do with like maybe a childhood impact or something. Like, I don't mean to analyze people, but I see it happening. And so I think about that. I was just like, these are some of the behaviors that maybe I had recognized in myself at one time or whatever. The more you do this, the more you start to recognize a lot of the things that are going on out there. You start to see why it is that people end up living the life that they do. Why it is that they find it so hard to try and communicate out there with a lot of people is because, well, you might have had a hard time communicating with people because of the unfamiliar feeling that it is to go out there and to communicate. And then once you realize if you communicate more, then it doesn't feel that unfamiliar. And then pretty soon, communicating is the familiar, not communicating is the unfamiliar. So you walk into a room and you just immediately, have you ever found anybody who can walk into a room and just become friends with everybody instantly? Like, it's just amazing. Like, they walk in and it's just like they're instantly like, oh my God, that's so great. And then like 2 minutes later, they're switching numbers around and like, I'm like, what in the world? Like, how the hell did you all become friends? Like, I have a hard time just coming into a room sometimes and just saying hi, all right? But yet these people just can like walk in and just like immediately just like make friends with everybody going on. And so when I found that I had that ability to do that too, by just simply walking up and saying, hey, my name is Simon, what's yours? It was, it was like, it's not that scary of a thing to do. But if you're an introverted person who doesn't normally do that and you're working a job in which that you're not dealing with customers or something, then you end up feeling like, man, communicating with people is a very unfamiliar thing that doesn't, like, I don't want to do it. Like, I get this uncomfortable feeling from it. The more you do it, the more you feel like, oh man, this isn't so bad. And then pretty soon it's just like it's unfamiliar to not communicate with other people. It'd be in a room and not say hi to them. This seems really weird and out of place. All right, let's check out this super chat I got. Where the heck is Freddie? I guess they're running basketball a little later today. All right, I can't read this because I can't see because I'm an old man. All right, what does this say here? It says, Eli, thank you very much for the $9.99, man. Love the streams, UE. Thanks for being you and not shilling mainstream fear porn talking points just for clout and money. You're a real one. Yeah, thank you, man. And I really appreciate it because I know it'll pay off for me. I could have like really pushed a lot of fear tactics. Like, I'm good at it. Like, I can act, right? I mean, I'm gonna be acting soon in a play. So I could really have like thought of some really scary things to say to push out there to make the people like, just like, oh my God, what the hell is happening out here in this world, and then just focus in on my channel to get all this like updated information about how like the entire world is going to collapse. And I could find probably lots of evidence even in the information that I present to you today and tell it that way. Like, I could put that sort of spin on it and it would be very entertaining. I know I could do it. Like, I can make it sound scary as hell. But that's not what I want to be in. That's not the energy I want to be in. That's not the information that I want to put out there. That's not me, right? What I want to do is put out exactly what it is that I am doing here, and that is the information that I think is real, that is going to be most helpful for you so that you can make the best decisions for yourself. And that's it, man. That is my entire intention of anything about here. Like, if there's any tension out there, that's it. That's my intention, right? I'm intention when I am trying to do that. That's what I'm trying to do, is spread this information so that you can make the best decisions for yourself. And that's what I feel comfortable doing. Anything else outside of that, and I don't feel very comfortable. It doesn't feel right, and I don't know if I can really live with myself when I'm not doing it. So knowing like I get super chats coming in as generous as you guys are with the channel, the PayPal that you guys have been sending, because I've gotten a few PayPals just recently. That's really generous of you guys. Thank you so much. In fact, PayPal is awesome because it actually circumvents the YouTube platform. We don't have to stress about those guys taking their portion of it, but it doesn't matter because, YouTube gives me the ability to spread this information around, and I can't thank them enough for having the platform for me to do it on. So if they have to take their share, that's what they do. Right. Thank you for the platform to help me get this out there and to live the life that I do. Like, I can't thank them enough. And so, thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the super thanks. Thank you for becoming a member of the channel, joining the channel for $1 a month. It's probably one of the greatest ways you can actually support the Uneducated Economist, because it's literally $1 a month. It's insignificant to most people. $12 a year, $120 a decade for some hardcore information that I try to push out, which we are going to be talking about tomorrow in a live stream, probably around 10 o'clock is what I'm thinking. And we'll be breaking down some recent Federal Reserve speeches and try to get a better understanding of what it is that they are planning to do here in the near future. And these speeches are, like I said, they're communications to the other central bankers. They're not really communication to the mainstream. And because they put information in there and they talk about information that they don't talk about out there in the mainstream media. So I think it's important to break these things down. And a lot of times they're very complicated. So when we talk about it here on this channel and we break those speeches down, we're breaking it down in a way that the average person can hopefully retain, in a way that they can then say, okay, I understand now what it is that's happening out here. And, for $1 a month, it's a great way to support the Uneducated Economist, and you get access to an incredible amount of information too. So, it's the cheapest membership you could ever possibly join in on, and think about all the support you have for the Uneducated Economist by doing it. All right, $26.99. Thank you so much, everybody, for all these super chats. Okay, we got $2 coming from Checkdo, is that what that says? Thank you so much for the $2, man. Buy platinum, chat. Well, are you saying like buy the metal platinum? I mean, I think buying into any precious metals is probably going to be a very good idea, no matter what kind of precious metals it really is. But when it comes to buying, like, the difference between like gold, silver, platinum, palladium, copper, stuff like that, like even copper, I would put under copper, gold, platinum, palladium, probably in that order, under silver. Like, I would go silver, copper, gold, platinum, palladium. Right? And the reason why I would put it in that order of importance is because when it comes to my mind, what would be the easiest one to sell? And copper and gold, I think, would be a little questionable on whether or not I would have those, because it's going to be kind of difficult to find a copper dealer. But I think, or somebody who's going to be buying into copper as opposed to gold or silver, like even a coin, like a jeweler or something like that, might be into buying silver or gold, and might give you like spot price for the gold coin or the silver coin or something if you're lucky. But if you're starting to move into platinum and palladium, the jeweler might be into that, but it's going to be very rare that you're going to find anybody else, right? And there might be a few people, but when it comes to silver, you're going to find just about everybody out there who's down for it, right? And that's really where I come to like the conclusion that having silver is probably the most like important position, if you have not taken, to take. Right? Regardless if you are just brand new trying to get started, Cody's, like, if you're Cody's age, loading up on silver early is probably one of the best positions that you can take, because from that point on, you're out of the third-party claim. You don't have to stress about them anymore. And everything you start doing can then now have a reliance on that third party, whether it's loaning money to the government, buying into the stock market, doing, cryptocurrencies or something of that nature. You can start relying on the system, the power grid, everything else out there. But if you have that silver position, you don't have to rely on any of that stuff. Like, none of that stuff is critical to the value or the importance of what it is that silver can do. All right, you guys are so awesome tonight, man. What a great live stream. We got 161 people watching with 157 likes. I love it when I have that many likes going on with this many people. SLV or physical silver? Well, it depends on what it is that you're wanting out of your silver, man. Are you wanting that third party, like to be an insurance policy from that third party claim? Well, you don't get that with SLV, right? In fact, that is the exact opposite. You are putting all your money with a third party claim. So when it comes to the position that you want to take because you think, man, I think silver is going to go up to $50 an ounce and I want to make a bunch of money off of it, well, then you want to think of the easiest way to do that, which would be SLV. But again, you're relying on a third party. So when it comes to, okay, I think the boys are done. So when it comes to the physical possession versus the like ETF kind of position, you really have to think of what it is that I want this silver to do for me. Like for me personally, I think having it in physical possession to be outside of the third party claim and using it as an insurance policy, that's what I want out of silver. If it goes up to $50 an ounce, I don't care. That's fine, right? I got minor stocks and stuff like that that ought to do pretty well if that is to happen, but I'm not really anticipating that sort of thing. And if it does, okay, cool. I will sell some of my silver off, make some money off of it, but I have very little low expectations of it. What I want from silver is the insurance policy part of things. So this is why I've taken the position that I have. And so no, I don't. I mean, that's it, right? I mean, I don't get into SLV. I do own a little bit because I want to have some skin in the game. I literally own like $10 worth. It's not very much. And then that's it. Like, and I have no other intent to buy into ETFs with any more of it. I would buy physical silver first. And speaking of which, if you happen to be in the area, I think Clatsop Coin is selling silver cheap. I'm not sure exactly what the deal is that he's offering, but it's pretty low. All right. All right, you boys are ready?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you guys for hanging out for today's live stream. We had you can come in, Matthew, they can't see you. We had 167 people watching with 164 likes. You guys are awesome for hitting that like button. I really appreciate the support in sharing the video, hitting the like button, doing comments. All that stuff is what really shares these videos, pushes it out there, and that's a way that you can support the Uneducated Economist. You guys are very generous with the $26.99 in super chats because you guys are always so awesome with those super chats. And then again, I want to thank those of you who have been sending me some PayPal tips. That is very generous of you, especially around this time of year. I really appreciate everything you do for the Uneducated Economist. I look forward to seeing some of you at Bingo, and I'm really looking forward to being down in Vegas and meeting a bunch of you down in Vegas at Mike Zuber's One Rental at a Time conference. Links are down in the description, and join the channel so that you can be part of tomorrow's morning's live stream. Okay, Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know. You guys want to say goodnight?
No.